and infrastructure is the key. If I bore you with a bunch of slides, the one thing I would want you to take away from this is engage the utility early. Whether you're in Southern California, Edison, or some other utility, engage the utility earlier. We want to be your partner in this. We need to be your partner in this. We rely on you to give us the information you need, and you rely on us to give you the power. So engage us early. That's the most important thing here. So Edison, Edison is, we like to think that we're leading the way in transforming the energy sector. The state has very aggressive goals, and we have bought into those completely, and we support those goals. And we're doing what we need to do to try and support that across all market segments, not just transit, but every medium and heavy duty segment, as well as a very aggressive light duty set of programs as well. We all know where we've got issues of air quality in our area. And you can see as we look at the major traffic corridors, those air quality issues become significantly worse. And one of the things that all of our programs are focusing on is making sure we're making a good impact in the disadvantaged community areas. But what I really want to talk about today, since we're talking about electrification of the medium heavy duty sector, is our new Charge Ready Transport program, which we'll be launching here very shortly. This program, we approached the CPUC, said we have a program based on the success of our original light duty Charge Ready program. We would like to get out there and help kickstart the medium heavy duty market. We received a program budget of $356 million from the CPUC to help create electric infrastructure for all medium heavy duty segments. That includes transit, but it also includes cargo handling. It could be forklifts, a lot of ports and warehouse information. And one of the things, a minimum of 40% of our budget is going to be spent in DACs throughout the Southern California area, throughout our service territory. We have a goal of hitting at least 870 different project sites. And the program goal is to make sure that we are helping electrify at least 8,500 vehicles throughout Southern California. There are some rebates built in also to help offset some of the costs that the site hosts have to bear in terms of charging equipment, and those will be available primarily in the transit and school bus sector and some sites that exist in DACs. So basically, what does the program entail? So SCE will deploy the make-ready infrastructure up to the point of interconnection with the charging equipment. Basically, we're going to install all of the infrastructure necessary up to the point where you would mount your charging equipment. And I have a little slide that details that. Participants can select from a list of approved charging equipment. So Doran brought a very interesting point up about BYD has one interface, Proterra has another interface. One of the things that Edison is doing, and we're partnering with other utilities not only in the state of California but across the country, we're trying to drive standards in all the market segments. So whether you're in transit, whether you're in over-the-road trucking, whether you're in light-duty delivery trucking, we want to drive charging equipment interface standards so that you're not locked into one OEM. If you go out for procurement in year 1 and you choose OEM A, but in year 5 you choose OEM B, we want your equipment to work across all that equipment. We also want to know that in a delivery, say for example, port to the logistics centers in the Inland Empire, an independent operator can charge at equipment either publicly available or at individual warehousing or port locations. That's extremely important. So all of our programs, if there's a standard existing in a market segment, we're going to require that standard to be implemented to take advantage of our program. If there's not a standard, we are going to help support industry developing a standard for that market segment. There is a customer ownership option available in this program. So the way the program is structured, Edison installs all this infrastructure and we own and maintain it just like our standard distribution infrastructure. There are some sites where they would prefer to install their own at their own facility, and we do have an option where we can help rebate to offset that cost so that they can still take advantage of our program. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there is a rebate available on the charging equipment itself to transit, school bus operators, and some sites located in disadvantaged communities. So, make-ready infrastructure. A lot of people ask, what does make-ready infrastructure mean? In this model, Edison You know, the traditional utility model is providing a transformer up to the meter panel, and every customer picks up everything from there on out. In this model, we would actually pick up all of the infrastructure. So for example, in Doran's case, in a transit yard, not only would we come in and serve to a transformer, we would also serve beyond that all the way to that interface for the charging equipment. There's two basic models in that case. One where you have the standalone charging equipment that sits in the yard. You think about what you typically see for a level 2 charger for a passenger car. That would be that standalone infrastructure. There's also the more condensed infrastructure. Doran showed that slide of the overhead solar canopy with the charging equipment that might descend on a cord reel or an automated overhead system from there. And in that case, our point of interconnection would actually be at a block of power electronics off to the side of that overhead infrastructure. But that's basically what a make-ready situation looks like in a very sort of crude slide. I've got a better slide though here. If you look at a site, and this is just a typical warehouse site, you can adapt this to a transit yard, you could adapt this to a trucking yard. But you've got the standard distribution grid. That's the typical, okay, Edison provides power at our distribution grid. But we're going to provide all the way out to the meter panel and switchgear in this scenario. And then we might, depending on the type of charging equipment you choose, also install all the way out to the chargers that plug into your vehicle. The other thing that we want to stress with sites that are looking at doing electrification is, what are you doing, we call load side management. What are you doing beyond that meter? Are you going to include some battery storage? Are you going to include some solar? We want to know about that. That load side management is key. If you are including some storage on site, you're including some solar or some other generation on site, that will allow you to reduce your connected load to the grid. Not only will that give you much more predictable fueling costs, it will also reduce the amount of infrastructure that needs to be installed to support your fleet. And a little bit more on load side technology. Not only would that be some battery storage or some solar or other generation on site, but it's also perhaps some software or solid state hardware in your charging equipment that manages the charging, so that if you bring in 20 buses in the evening and they all plug in, do they all need to charge at the same time? Or do you have certain routes that need a full charge and they leave the yard first thing in the morning? So the system charges those vehicles first, and then you have other routes that maybe operate comfortably on a 50% charge for that day. It would charge them later. It doesn't mean they would only charge them to 50%, but it would divert the power to the ones that need the full charge first. That again allows you to reduce that connected load to the distribution grid, helps you manage your fuel costs much more effectively. It helps the utility also make sure that we're able to provide reliable power to all the facilities on that individual circuit. The last thing with load side management is thinking about the ratio of chargers to vehicles. In many operations, a 1-to-1 ratio is not necessary. You may find yourself in a position where you've got vehicles that are out throughout a 24-hour route cycle, but there's always one batch of those vehicles in the yard. So maybe you can get away with a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 charging ratio. That helps reduce not only your fueling costs, but it really helps reduce the amount of infrastructure you're having to put in, helps alleviate some of those space constraints that were mentioned earlier. Most of the yards where this type of infrastructure is being installed were never really thought out to be housing transformers, large switchgear, and all that. So looking at how you can reduce that vehicle to charger ratio. Edison rolled out new rates that they just started in March of 2019 for our EV rates, our time of use EV rates. There are no demand charges for years 1 to 5. So starting in March 2019, the demand charges were completely eliminated from our EV rates through the first 5 years of those rates. Then the demand charges phase back in gradually from years 6 to 10. So the demand charge is one of those big bites that happens on your electric bill. Doran's nodding his head there. That's the one that really hits you, because that's basically your highest usage point of that billing cycle is what you get billed for the entire billing cycle. And the reason for that is the utility is providing that peak amount of power, and whether that peak amount of power occurs for 5 minutes or 50 hours, that's the peak that we need to provide service for on that circuit. So we have to bill for that. We have to say that nobody else can use power on that circuit because you may request that power on that circuit. We're waiving that. The reason we're waiving that is we want to help help all of the agencies, all of the different market segments transition and learn how to operate their new electric fleet without having to worry about that impact of demand. Then we're going to phase it back in gradually in years 6 to 10. Actually, what will happen in year 10 is it's about I think it's somewhere like 58 or 62% of what it currently is now. So the overall demand charge will be significantly less. But the idea being that by year 6, you've learned how to operate your fleet, and then through 6 to 10, you can gradually accept where you are on that demand point and adjust your fueling costs accordingly. And then we are definitely going to encourage off-peak charging. We've changed our on-peak hours. We have higher energy rates during on-peak, 4 to 9 p.m. So if you've got route cycles that allow you to charge overnight, or even better, if they allow you to charge during that midday period of time. So we think about school bus fleets. Those vehicles operate fully in the morning, but then they sit for a long time during the day. That's the perfect time for them to charge because they can take advantage of our best rates at that time. Some additional programs and services that Edison is supporting the TE world. We have a transportation electrification advisory service. So our business customer division has a group of field engineers that will go out and meet with fleet or various market segment operators that are looking to make a transition. They will help them with rate analyses to kind of give them an idea of what rate tier they should be on for their fleet, help them understand what those fueling costs will be. They can also help them calculate GHG reductions, and really importantly, what sort of LCFS credits they can take advantage of to help offset their fueling costs. And this team also supports various other customer-led projects outside of our immediate TE programs. We do have a self-generation services group that helps review plans for solar and battery storage at sites if you're looking to do an interconnection type deployment. We can help with a feasibility analysis and understand what those cost savings might be if you implement something like that. And importantly there, we can also provide a third-party sort of quality check on vendor claims just to make sure if a vendor is providing or suggesting a service, we can say, does that really impact your utility usage? We do also have the online energy management tool. Kind of gives you a usage data. It's a one-day snapshot usage data, so you can understand as you plug in different things or as you generate where that's affecting your usage. Various online data fields available there. So that's the end of my presentation. But I do want to just kind of mention again. I said it at the beginning, and I'm going to say it again at the end. And engage your utility early. We are the partner in this, but if we don't know what you're doing, we can't help you. Don't buy 20 new trucks and then come to us and say, I've got to plug these in. Tell us, hey, we're engaged in an RFP right now, looking at various different fleets, fleet conversions, and we want to understand what does that look like from a utility perspective. Let us help you from the beginning. Don't try and bring us in at the end. We will still serve you, but if you bring us in at the end, it's probably going to cost a lot more and it's going to take some time. So we really want to engage you early and engage with us early. So.